27 missed calls. That's what I woke up to at 3:18 a.m. on a Thursday morning in October 2025, in the cab of a Peterbilt 389 parked at a truck stop on I-70 outside of Wheeling, West Virginia, 4 hours from home. 27 missed calls, all from my wife, all between 2:17 a.m. and 3:11 a.m. 54 minutes of my phone buzzing in the cup holder while I slept through it, because I had been pouring concrete footings for 14 hours and my body had shut down the way bodies shut down when they've been used past their capacity, completely, without negotiation, deaf to everything including the sound of a woman who needed me to answer. The last text from her, sent at 1:47 a.m., said, "Don't come home tonight." The text before that, sent at 6:12 p.m., said, "Working late, be safe, love you." Between love you and don't come home, 7 hours and 35 minutes. Something had happened in those 7 hours. Something that turned my wife from a woman saying, "Love you," into a woman saying, "Stay away." I called her back, no answer. Called again, no answer. Called a third time. Voicemail. Her voice, recorded, calm. The voice of a woman who had set up her voicemail on a Sunday afternoon 3 years ago, and had no idea that her husband would someday hear it at 3:18 a.m., while trying to understand why she had called him 27 times, and then stopped. I got in my truck. Not the Peterbilt, my personal truck, a 2018 Ram 1500 that I had driven to the job site and parked beside the rig. I pulled out of the truck stop on 270 and drove south toward Charleston. 4 hours. 260 miles. The longest drive of my life. I drove in silence. No radio, no podcast. Just the engine and the highway and the particular sound of a man's breathing when he is trying to stay calm and failing. I called her 6 more times during the drive. No answer. I called my daughter's phone. No answer. I called my son's phone. No answer. 3 phones. 0 answers, and the distance between Wheeling and Charleston shrinking mile by mile, while the distance between what I knew and what had happened grew wider with every unanswered ring. I turned onto our street, Maple Ridge Drive in South Hills, Charleston, at 7:14 a.m., and I stopped the truck in the middle of the road. Police cars, 4 of them. Parked in front of my house, blue and red lights still cycling. An ambulance in the driveway. Crime scene tape across the front porch. The porch I had built with my own hands 2 summers ago, where my daughter sat and read books and my son practiced guitar, and my wife drank coffee every Saturday morning while I mowed the lawn. Yellow tape. Across my porch. I parked, got out. Walked toward the house on legs that were doing the work of walking without consulting my brain, because my brain had stopped processing information and was running on the emergency backup system that humans have for moments when reality exceeds capacity. Officer stepped in front of me. Young, maybe 28, with the particular posture of a man who has been standing outside a crime scene for 5 hours and has not yet learned how to make his face do nothing. "Sir, you can't go in there. That's my house." "Are you the husband?" "Yes, I'm the husband. Where is my wife? Where are my kids?" He looked at his partner. A woman, older, standing by the front door. She looked back at him, and he said something, not to me, to her, quietly, the way cops say things when they think the person they're talking about can't hear, but I was 3 feet away, and my ears were working even if my brain wasn't. He has no idea what she just did. 6 words. 6 words that contained an entire night I had missed, a war I didn't know had been fought, and a woman I thought I knew doing something I never imagined she was capable of. "What she did," I said. "What did she do? Where is she? Is she hurt? Are my kids—" "Sir, your wife is inside. She's not injured. Your children are safe. They're upstairs with a social worker." "A social worker? Why is there a social worker in my house?" "Sir, I need you to come with me. There are detectives inside who need to speak with you. I'm not going anywhere until someone tells me what happened." The female officer walked over. Her name tag said Kellogg. She was maybe 45, had the steady eyes of someone who had worked enough crime scenes to know that the person standing in front of her needed information more than he needed protocol. "Mr. Bradshaw, your wife is safe. Your children are safe. At approximately 2:07 a.m. this morning, two men forced entry into your home through the back door. Your wife confronted them. She discharged a firearm. One of the intruders sustained a gunshot wound to the shoulder. Both intruders have been detained. Your wife is being interviewed by detectives. She is not under arrest. She is being treated as the victim. Two men broke into my house. Yes. And my wife shot one of them? Yes, sir. My wife. Nola, the school teacher. Yes, sir. Nola shot someone. Sir, I think you need to go inside. I went inside, through the yellow tape, through the front door, into the house where I had lived for 9 years, where my children had taken their first steps, where my wife made pancakes on Sunday mornings and graded papers at the kitchen table every night. The kitchen was a crime scene. The back door, the door that opened onto the deck I built in 2019, had been forced. The frame was splintered. On the kitchen floor there were markers, the numbered plastic evidence markers that police place around physical evidence. Marker 1, a crowbar by the back door. Marker 2, a shell casing on the floor near the refrigerator. Marker 3, blood. Not a pool, a smear. On the tile near the kitchen island. The blood of a man who had broken into my house and been shot by my wife. My wife. Nola was sitting in the living room, on the couch, a blanket around her shoulders. A detective was sitting across from her. She was holding a cup of tea that she wasn't drinking. Her face was, I don't have the right word, not scared, not angry, depleted. The face of a woman who has used every resource she has, every ounce of adrenaline, every calorie of courage, every year of training she never told anyone about, and has nothing left except the ability to sit upright and hold a cup. She saw me, and her face broke open. Wyatt. She stood up. The blanket fell. She crossed the room, and she grabbed me, both arms around my chest, her face against my neck, holding me the way you hold something that was almost taken from you and wasn't, and the holding is the proof that it wasn't. They came for you, she said. Her voice was muffled against my shirt. They came for you, and you weren't here, and I couldn't let them wait for you. Who came for me? Nola, what happened? I'll tell you, everything. But first I need you to go upstairs and see the kids. They're with a social worker. They heard everything. They need to see you. I went upstairs. Lark's room. My daughter, 10 years old. She was sitting on her bed with a woman in a Charleston PD jacket who was speaking to her in the low, gentle voice that social workers use with children who have experienced something no child should experience. Lark saw me in the doorway, and she launched off the bed and into my arms with the velocity of a child who has been waiting for her father for 5 hours and has been holding herself together with the structural integrity of a 10-year-old, which is impressive but finite. Daddy. I'm here, baby, I'm here. Mommy shot the bad man. I know. She told me to hide in the bathroom. She said, don't come out and don't make a sound. She said, call 911 if I hear the gun. You called 911. I called. I told them there were bad men in our house. I told them my mommy had a gun. They said help was coming. I stayed on the phone until I heard the sirens. I held my daughter. This 10-year-old girl who had hidden in a bathroom at 2 a.m. listened to her mother fire a shotgun and called 911 with the composed precision of a child who had been given instructions and followed them because her mother had taught her to follow instructions when it mattered. You did so good, baby. You did so good. Is Mommy okay? Mommy is okay. Mommy is downstairs. She's talking to police. She was really brave, Daddy. I know she was. Colt, my son, 13, was in his room. He was sitting on the floor with his back against the bed, his knees pulled up to his chest, his arms wrapped around his shins. He was not crying. He was staring at the wall with the particular blankness of a 13-year-old boy who has processed more than his nervous system can catalog and has defaulted to the only setting left, which is still. Colt. He looked up. His eyes were red. Hey, Dad, you okay? Mom told me to take Lark to the bathroom. She said, lock the door and don't come out. She said she would handle it. And you did what she said. I wanted to come down. I wanted to help. She said no. She said my job was to protect Lark, so I stayed. That was the right thing to do. I heard the shotgun, Dad. I heard it go off. And then I heard a man screaming. And then I heard Mom's voice. She said, don't move, or I'll shoot again. And the man stopped screaming. I sat down next to my son, on the floor, both of us with our backs against his bed. And I put my arm around him, and we sat there for a while, not talking, because sometimes the best thing a father can do is be a surface his son can lean against while the world reorganizes itself. Now, before I tell you why two men broke into my house at 2 a.m., before I tell you about the safety complaint, and the subcontractor, and the $2.3 million contract, and the chain of events that turned a routine workplace report into an attempted murder, I need to tell you about my wife. Because the woman who sat downstairs with a blanket around her shoulders is not the woman I thought I married. She is something more. And the distance between who I thought she was and who she actually is the distance between the woman who makes pancakes on Sunday and the woman who sits in a dark kitchen at 2 a.m. with a loaded shotgun, waiting for men who want to kill her husband, with the patience and the skill and the terrifying calm of a person who has been trained to do exactly this. My name is Wyatt Bradshaw. I am 46 years old. I am a construction foreman for Ridgeline Builders, a commercial construction company based in Charleston, West Virginia. I build things: office buildings, parking structures, medical facilities, the bones of a city that most people walk through without thinking about the men who poured the concrete and set the steel and made it stand. My wife is Nola Bradshaw. She is 43 years old. She is a fourth-grade teacher at Piedmont Elementary School in South Hills. She teaches children to read, to write, to do multiplication, to raise their hands before speaking. She wears cardigans, she drinks chamomile tea. She keeps a jar of colored pencils on her desk and a framed photograph of our family on her bookshelf and a sign above her whiteboard that says, "Be kind," in letters that her students helped her paint. That is who I thought she was. A teacher, a mother, a woman whose most dangerous possession was a hot glue gun. I was wrong. Nola grew up in McDowell County, West Virginia. If you don't know McDowell County, it is the poorest county in West Virginia, which makes it one of the poorest counties in America. It's coal country, or it was, before the coal industry collapsed and left behind the hollows and the houses and the people who couldn't afford to leave. Nola grew up in a hollow called Bradshaw Creek, no relation to my surname, which is a coincidence that she found funny when we met, and I found romantic. Her father was Ezekiel Pruitt, a coal miner who was laid off in 1995 when the mine closed, and who spent the rest of his life doing what unemployed coal miners in McDowell County do: hunting, fixing things, surviving. He raised Nola alone after her mother, Jolene, left when Nola was 8, packed a bag, drove to Charlotte, and never came back. No divorce, no custody fight, just absence. Ezekiel Pruitt was not a soft man. He was the product of a hard place, and he raised his daughter accordingly. He taught Nola to shoot when she was 11. Not recreationally, purposefully. They lived in a hollow where the nearest law enforcement response was 45 minutes away. By the time the sheriff gets here, Ezekiel told her, whatever was going to happen has already happened. You need to be the one who decides what happens. He taught her his Remington 870 pump-action shotgun, the same shotgun that was now in a police evidence bag in my kitchen. He taught her to load it, to rack it, to aim it, to fire it. He taught her to clear a room, not the way soldiers clear rooms with tactical precision and night vision, but the way a man from a hollow clears a room. Slowly, quietly, with the patience of a hunter who knows that the thing he's waiting for will come to him if he's still enough. Nola left McDowell County at 18. Scholarship to Marshall University. Education degree, teaching certificate. She moved to Charleston, got a job, and built a life that was as far from Bradshaw Creek as she could get without leaving West Virginia. She wore cardigans instead of camo. She read children's books instead of tracking deer. She became the teacher, the mother, the woman with the "Be Kind" sign, because that was the person she wanted to be, not the person she had been trained to be. She kept her father's shotgun. It was in a locked case in the back of our bedroom, closet. I knew it was there. I assumed it was sentimental, a keepsake from a dead father. Ezekiel died in 2017, lung disease from the mines, and Nola had brought the gun to our house after his funeral the way you bring a watch or a ring, an object that represents a person, not a function. I never asked her if she knew how to use it. I never thought to ask. She was a schoolteacher. Schoolteachers don't use shotguns, except when they do. Now, let me tell you about the night, because you need to understand what happened between 6:12 p.m., when my wife texted "love you," and 2:07 a.m., when she racked a Remington 870 in the dark and waited for two men to walk through her back door. At 6:07 p.m. on Wednesday, October 15th, 2025, Nola was in the kitchen making dinner. Colt was in his room doing homework. Lark was at the kitchen table drawing. The doorbell rang. Nola answered. A man was standing on the porch. Mid-30s, work clothes, a face she didn't recognize. He was not aggressive. He was calm. The calm of a man who has been sent to deliver a message and has rehearsed the delivery. "Mrs. Bradshaw?" "Yes." "Your husband is Wyatt Bradshaw, foreman at Ridgeline Builders?" "Who's asking?" 3 months ago, your husband filed a safety complaint against Whitmore Industrial Contracting. The complaint triggered an OSHA investigation. The investigation found violations. Whitmore lost a $2.3 million contract with the state. The owner, Dale Whitmore, is now facing criminal negligence charges. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Your husband filed a report that cost people a lot of money and put a man in line for prison. Tonight, sometime after midnight, two men are going to come to this house. They're coming for your husband. If your husband is here, they will hurt him. If you call the police, they will find your husband at his job site tomorrow instead. There is no version of this where your husband is safe, unless he is not here tonight and the men who come find an empty house. Are you threatening my family? I'm telling you what's going to happen. Keep your husband away tonight and leave the house yourself. If the house is empty, nobody gets hurt. If it's not—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. He walked away, got into a truck with no visible plates, and drove off. Nola stood in the doorway for approximately 90 seconds. I know this because Lark later told the police that Mommy stood at the front door for a really long time after the man left, and Lark thought she was looking at something outside, but she wasn't. She was thinking. Here is what my wife thought about in those 90 seconds, as she later told me in the living room 3 days later when we finally had the conversation that would explain everything. She thought about calling me, telling me everything, telling me to go to the police, to a hotel, to anywhere but home. But the man had said if she called the police, they would find me at my job site. My job site was a construction project on Kanawha Boulevard. Open, accessible, no security. If these people knew where we lived, they knew where I worked. Calling the police might protect the house, but wouldn't protect me. She thought about taking the kids and leaving, driving to her aunt's house in Beckley, 2 hours south. But the man had said the house needed to be empty. If she left and I came home, if I came home because she didn't answer her phone, because Wyatt Bradshaw is the kind of man who drives home when his wife doesn't answer, I would walk into whatever was waiting. She thought about calling me and telling me to stay at the job site, to sleep in the truck, to not come home. That was the safest option for me, but it meant leaving the house, her children's house, open for men who would come at midnight and do whatever they planned to do. And if they came and found the house empty and realized the warning had been delivered and ignored, would they come back tomorrow? Next week? Would this become a permanent threat? And then she thought about the shotgun in the closet. She didn't think about it the way a movie character thinks about a weapon, with dramatic music and a slow-motion montage. She thought about it the way her father had taught her to think about it, as a tool for a specific situation. A situation where the nearest help is too far away, and the thing coming through the door is not going to wait for the sheriff. In 90 seconds, Nola Bradshaw made a decision. The decision was, nobody is coming into my house tonight. Not to hurt my husband, not to threaten my children, not to take anything that belongs to this family. The men can come. I will be here, and I will be ready. At 6:12 p.m., she texted me, "Working late, be safe, love you." Normal, casual. A text that would not make me worry. A text designed to confirm that I was away from the house and would stay away. I was pouring footings near Wheeling, 4 hours north. I wouldn't be home until the next afternoon at the earliest. At 6:15 p.m., she called me. I was on the site. I answered. "Hey, babe." "Hey, you staying at the truck stop tonight?" "Yeah, probably. We're running behind on the footings. I'll sleep in the cab and finish tomorrow morning." "Good, don't drive tired." "I won't. I love you, Wyatt." "Love you too." She hung up. She knew I was 4 hours away and not coming home. The first part of the plan was done. At 6:30 p.m., she fed the kids dinner, mac and cheese. Colt ate at the table. Lark ate on the couch watching a show. Normal Wednesday evening in the Bradshaw house. Nothing in Nola's behavior indicated that anything was wrong, because Nola Bradshaw is a woman who grew up in a hollow where showing fear was a luxury, and composure was survival. At 8:30 p.m., she put Lark to bed, read her a chapter of a book, kissed her forehead, said, "If anything wakes you up tonight, go to the bathroom and lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. Why? Just in case. It's like a fire drill. Remember how we practice fire drills? We go to the meeting spot in the yard. This is different. If you hear something loud, go to the bathroom, lock the door, take your phone, call 911. Can you do that?" "Yes, Mommy." "Good girl." At 9 p.m., she told Colt the same thing. But Colt was 13. Colt asked questions. "Mom, what's going on?" "I need you to trust me, Colt. If you hear anything tonight, anything loud, anything that doesn't sound right, I need you to take Lark to the bathroom, lock the door, and call 911. "Mom, are you scaring me on purpose?" "I'm preparing you. There's a difference. Can you do what I'm asking?" "Yes." "Your job is to protect Lark, not to come downstairs, not to investigate. Protect your sister. That's your only job tonight." "Mom." "Colt, say it back to me." "Take Lark to the bathroom, lock the door, call 911. "Good, I love you. Go to bed." At 9:15 p.m., Nola went to our bedroom closet, opened the locked gun case, removed the Remington 8-70, her father's shotgun. She had not fired it since Ezekiel's funeral in 2017, when she had taken it to the hollow and fired 3 rounds into the hillside, not as practice, but as a farewell. The gun had been cleaned and stored since then, 8 years without being touched. She loaded it. 5 shells, double-aught buckshot. The same shells her father had used for home defense in a hollow where the sheriff was 45 minutes away, and the hollow itself made its own laws. At 10 p.m., she turned off every light in the house. Every lamp, every overhead, every nightlight. Total darkness. She sat in the kitchen. On a chair she had positioned behind the kitchen island, the island I had installed in 2020, granite countertop, the same island that was now cover for a woman with a loaded shotgun. She sat in the dark for 4 hours, from 10 p.m. to 2:07 a.m. 4 hours of sitting in a dark kitchen with a loaded shotgun across her lap, listening to the house settle and the wind move and the occasional car pass on Maple Ridge Drive, waiting for the sound that would tell her that the men had arrived. She told me later that the hardest part was not the waiting. The hardest part was the silence. "I could hear the kids breathing upstairs," she said, "through the vents. The house was so quiet I could hear them breathing through the HVAC ducts, and every breath they took was a reason I was sitting in that chair." At 1:47 a.m., 20 minutes before the men arrived, she sent me the text. "Don't come home tonight." Not because she thought I was coming. She knew I was in Wheeling. She sent it as insurance, in case I woke up early, in case I decided to drive home, in case Wyatt Bradshaw did what Wyatt Bradshaw always does, which is show up. She needed me to not show up, because the plan only worked if I wasn't there. If I was there, the plan became a firefight with 2 targets instead of 1 defender, and the variables multiplied in directions she couldn't control. At 2:07 a.m. she heard it. The back deck, footsteps, 2 sets, heavy. The particular sound of men who are trying to be quiet but are not trained in being quiet. The sound of weight on wood, the creak of boards under boots, the breathing of 2 people who are close to each other and generating heat that the cold October air was carrying through the gaps in the doorframe. She racked the shotgun. The sound of a Remington 870 being racked, the chick-chick of a pump-action cycling a shell into the chamber, is, according to every law enforcement officer and military trainer who has ever discussed home defense, the most effective deterrent sound in existence. It requires no words. It communicates a single, unmistakable message. Someone in this building is armed and has just made the weapon ready to fire. The back door splintered. Crowbar. The frame gave way. 2 men came through the doorway into the dark kitchen. They expected an empty house. They found a voice. "I have a shotgun pointed at you. I will fire if you move. Get on the floor." She told me later that her voice was steady. She said it surprised her, the steadiness. She expected to be shaking, the way people shake in movies when they hold guns, but she wasn't shaking. She was still. The particular stillness that Ezekiel Pruitt had taught her in a hollow in McDowell County 30 years ago. "Be stiller than the thing you're hunting," he used to say. "If you're still enough, it'll come to you." The first man, later identified as Ronan Halsey, 34, a known associate of Dale Whitmore, did not get on the floor. He rushed her. In the dark, he couldn't see the gun. He could only hear the voice. He assumed, incorrectly, that the voice was bluffing, that a woman in a dark kitchen couldn't possibly be holding a weapon she knew how to use. He was wrong. Nola fired once. The buckshot hit Ronan Halsey in the left shoulder. He went down. The sound of the shotgun in a closed kitchen is approximately 150 decibels, louder than a rock concert, louder than a jet engine at close range. The windows rattled. The dishes in the cupboard clinked. And upstairs 2 children woke up and followed their mother's instructions. The second man, later identified as Lyle Creech, 31, also connected to Whitmore, froze. He was standing in the broken doorway. His partner was on the floor, screaming, and a woman's voice, coming from behind a kitchen island in total darkness, said 5 words that would later be played in a courtroom. "Don't move. I'll shoot again." He didn't move. He stood in the doorway with his hands at his sides, and he did not move, because the difference between a bluff and a promise is the sound of a pump-action shotgun being racked for the second time. And Lyle Creech heard that sound and understood that the woman behind the island was not bluffing and was not scared and was not going to miss. Upstairs, Colt took Lark to the bathroom. Locked the door. Lark called 911. "There are bad men in our house. My mommy has a gun. Please help us." The 911 dispatcher, a woman named Wanda Spence, who had been working dispatch for 22 years, later said it was the calmest 911 call she had ever received from a child. Lark gave the address, gave the number of people in the house, gave the information that her mother had discharged a firearm. She did all of this at 10 years old, sitting on the bathroom floor, while her 13-year-old brother held her other hand, and the sound of a man screaming bled through the floor. Police arrived at 2:14 a.m., 7 minutes after the shotgun blast. They found 1 man on the kitchen floor with a shoulder wound, conscious and bleeding. 1 man standing in the broken doorway with his hands up, and 1 woman, Nola Bradshaw, 43, 4th-grade teacher at Piedmont Elementary, sitting on a kitchen chair behind the island, the Remington 870 across her lap, pointed at the doorway, steady as the granite countertop above her. "Ma'am, we're at Charleston PD. You can put the weapon down." "Not until they're cuffed." "Ma'am." "Cuff them first, then I'll put it down." The officers cuffed Ronan Halsey, on the floor, bleeding, and Lyle Creech, in the doorway, motionless. Then, and only then, did Nola set the shotgun on the counter. She stood up. Her legs gave out. An officer caught her. "How long were you sitting there?" the officer asked. 4 hours. 4 hours in the dark? "I was waiting." "Ma'am, do you have training?" "My father taught me." "Your father is dead 8 years. He was a coal miner from McDowell County. He taught me to shoot because the sheriff was 45 minutes away and the hollow didn't wait for the sheriff." That was when Nola started making the calls. 27 calls to my phone. Between 2:17 a.m., after the officers arrived, the intruders were cuffed and the scene was secured, and 3:11 a.m., when she finally stopped trying and let the phone go to voicemail. She wasn't calling to tell me what happened. She was calling because the adrenaline was metabolizing and the stillness was leaving her body, and the woman who had sat in the dark for 4 hours with a shotgun was being replaced by the woman who needed her husband to answer the phone so she could hear his voice and know that the reason she had done all of it, the reason she had sat in the dark and loaded the gun and warned the children and waited for the sound of boots on the deck, was alive and safe, and 4 hours away in a truck stop near Wheeling. I didn't answer. Because I was asleep. Because I had poured concrete for 14 hours. Because the phone was in the cup holder and my body had shut down. 27 calls. 27 times my wife reached for me and I wasn't there. He has no idea what she just did. That's what the officer said to his partner when I arrived at 7:14 a.m., and he was right. I had no idea, not about the men, not about the shotgun, not about the 4 hours in the dark, not about my daughter calling 911 from a bathroom floor, not about my wife, the teacher, the mother, the woman with the cardigan and the chamomile tea, sitting behind a kitchen island with a loaded Remington 870, waiting for 2 men who came to hurt me, and stopping them with the skills her dead father taught her in a hollow in West Virginia 30 years ago. I had no idea. And what I had even less idea about, what I would not learn for another 2 weeks, was why they came. Because in the chaos of that morning, with the crime scene tape and the detectives and the children upstairs and my wife shaking on the couch, nobody told me the reason. Nola told me, "They came for you," but couldn't tell me why because she didn't know why. She only knew what the man at the door had said. Your husband filed a complaint. The investigation took 2 weeks. Charleston PD worked it with the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force because the attempted break-in was connected to a federal OSHA investigation, which made it a federal matter. Here is what they found. 3 months before the night of October 15th, in July 2025, I had filed a safety complaint with OSHA against Whitmore Industrial Contracting, a subcontractor on the Kanawha Boulevard Medical Center project where I was the general foreman. The complaint was routine. Whitmore's crew was cutting corners on structural bracing during concrete pours, using temporary shoring that was rated for half the load it was bearing. I had warned them twice on site. They ignored me. I filed the report because that is what foremen do when subcontractors endanger workers, and because a concrete pour without proper bracing can collapse and kill every man standing under it. The OSHA investigation confirmed the violations. Whitmore Industrial lost their $2.3 million state contract. The company's owner, Dale Whitmore, age 52, was charged with criminal negligence. Whitmore blamed me, not OSHA, not the investigators, not his own corner cutting. Me, the foreman who filed the complaint. Dale Whitmore did not come to my house himself. He sent Ronan Halsey and Lyle Creech. He sent a messenger first, the man at the door, to give Nola the warning. And he expected the house to be empty when his men arrived, because he expected a schoolteacher to follow instructions. He didn't know about McDowell County. He didn't know about Ezekiel Pruitt. He didn't know about the hollow and the shotgun and the girl who learned to clear a room before she learned to drive a car. Dale Whitmore was arrested on November 2nd, 2025. Federal charges: conspiracy to commit assault, witness intimidation, and obstruction of a federal investigation. Ronan Halsey and Lyle Creech were charged with breaking and entering, attempted assault, and conspiracy. 3 are awaiting trial. The messenger, the man who came to the door at 6:07 p.m., was identified through surveillance footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera. His name was Garrett Spaulding, 36, a Whitmore employee. He was arrested and charged with conspiracy and witness intimidation. He cooperated with the FBI and provided testimony about Whitmore's instructions. The case is federal. It is moving slowly, the way federal cases do. But it is moving. Now, let me tell you about the conversation. The real conversation. Not the one in the kitchen with the detectives. The one that happened 3 days later in the living room, after the crime scene tape was removed and the back door was repaired and the blood was cleaned from the tile and the house was a house again instead of a crime scene. "Why didn't you call the police?" I asked. "Because the man at the door said if I called police, they'd find you at your job site. The Kanawha Boulevard site is open. No fence, no security. Anyone can walk in. I couldn't protect you at the job site. I could protect you here." You could have called me, told me everything. And what would you have done? I would have come home. Exactly. You would have driven 4 hours to come home and walk through the front door into whatever was waiting. And then there would be 2 of us in the house, and the kids and the men, and it becomes a situation I can't control. If you're not here, I control the environment. I know the house, I know the sight lines, I know where the kids are, I know where the gun is, I know where to sit so that anyone coming through the back door is backlit by the streetlight and I'm in darkness. I know all of this because my father taught me to know all of this, in a hollow where the sheriff was 45 minutes away and the only person between me and whatever was coming was me. Nola, you sat in the dark for 4 hours. Yes. With a shotgun. Yes. You're a schoolteacher. She looked at me, the look of a woman who has been seen one way for 15 years and is about to show the other way. I'm a schoolteacher because I chose to be a schoolteacher. I grew up in McDowell County. My father raised me alone in a hollow called Bradshaw Creek. My mother left when I was 8. The nearest police response was 45 minutes. My father taught me to shoot when I was 11 because he understood that a girl growing up alone in a hollow needs to be her own first responder. You never told me any of this. I told you I grew up in West Virginia. You didn't tell me you could shoot. You didn't ask. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to be that girl anymore, Wyatt. I left McDowell County because I wanted to be something different. I wanted to be the teacher, the mom, the woman who makes pancakes and grades papers and lives in a house with a porch and a lawn and a husband who builds things. I didn't want to be the girl from the hollow who can clear a room with a pump-action shotgun. I wanted to be the woman who never has to. But you kept the gun. I kept the gun because my father gave it to me, and because Ezekiel Pruitt taught me one thing that I have never forgotten. You can choose who you want to be, but you should never forget who you know how to be. I chose to be a teacher, but when 2 men broke through my back door to hurt my children's father, I remembered who I know how to be. The girl from the hollow. The girl from the hollow. I looked at my wife. This woman I had married 13 years ago. This woman I had shared a bed with for 4,000 nights. This woman who made pancakes and graded papers and wore cardigans and kept a sign above her whiteboard that said, "Be kind." She had sat in our kitchen in the dark for 4 hours with a loaded shotgun, waiting for 2 men who came to kill me. She had fired a round that stopped one of them. She had held the other at gunpoint until police arrived. She had prepared our children for the worst moment of their lives with the calm, methodical precision of a woman who had been preparing for moments like this since she was 11 years old. And she had never told me. Not because she was hiding it, because she wanted to be someone else. And being someone else means leaving parts of yourself in the place you came from and hoping you never need to go back for them. She went back for them on October 15, 2025. She went back to the hollow in McDowell County. She went back to the girl who could shoot and wait and be stiller than the thing she was hunting. And she went back because the alternative, letting 2 men walk through her door to hurt her family, was not something Nola Bradshaw was built to allow. It's December 2025 now, 2 months since the night. The back door has been replaced. The kitchen tile has been cleaned. The evidence markers are gone. The Remington 870 has been returned by the police. It was held as evidence during the investigation and was released when the ballistics confirmed self-defense. The shotgun is back in the closet, but it's not locked in a case anymore. It's on a shelf, loaded, within reach, because the woman who kept it as a sentimental keepsake now keeps it as what it always was, a tool. And the man who thought it was a family heirloom now understands that it was his wife's way of saying, even when she didn't say it out loud, "I am prepared for whatever comes through the door." Colt is seeing a counselor once a week. He's processing the night the way 13-year-old boys process trauma, in bursts and silences. In anger he doesn't know how to direct, and fear he doesn't know how to name. He told me last week that he wants to learn to shoot. I told him we would talk about it when he was older. He said Mom was 11 when Grandpa taught her. I didn't have an answer for that because he was right. Lark is resilient in the way that 10-year-olds are resilient. She has folded the night into her understanding of the world, and moved forward with the particular adaptability of a child who trusts her parents. She drew a picture last week. A woman standing in a kitchen, holding something long, a broom or a gun, depending on how you look at it. Above the woman, in crayon, "My mom is brave." It's on the refrigerator, next to the grocery list and a permission slip for a field trip, and the ordinary artifacts of a family that goes to school and builds things and eats mac and cheese, and, on one night in October, discovered that the quietest person in the house was the strongest person in the room. I filed the safety complaint because workers were in danger. The complaint cost a man his contract and triggered criminal charges. The man sent people to my house to hurt me, and my wife, the teacher, the mother, the woman from the hollow, stopped them. I protected workers. She protected me. Her father protected her. Lark protected herself. A circle of protection passed down through generations, from a coal miner in McDowell County to a schoolteacher in South Hills to a 10-year-old girl on a bathroom floor calling 911 with a steady voice. We protect people. That's what the Bradshaws do, with hard hats and safety reports and shotguns and 911 calls and whatever else the situation requires. We protect. Now, I want to ask you something. What would you do if your wife sent you a text at 1:47 a.m. that said, "Don't come home tonight," and you didn't know that those 4 words were the most loving thing she had ever said to you, that she wasn't pushing you away. She was pulling danger toward herself so it wouldn't reach you. And here's the deeper question. Do you really know the person you married? Do you know what they're capable of? Not the daily version, not the pancakes and the cardigans, but the version that comes out at 2 a.m. when the back door splinters and the only thing between your children and the men who came to hurt, their father is a woman in the dark with her dead father's shotgun? Because here's what I learned. You don't marry a person. You marry a history, a childhood, a set of skills that were forged in a place you've never been by a parent you never met. And sometimes, on the worst night of your life, that history walks out of the closet with a loaded Remington 870 and saves your family. Don't come home tonight. 4 words. The bravest sentence I have ever received. Not because she was afraid, because she wasn't. She was ready. Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit you somewhere unexpected, the dark kitchen, the 4 hours, the girl from the hollow, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, especially anyone who thinks they know the person they married. You might be right. Or you might be married to a woman from McDowell County who keeps her father's shotgun in the closet and hasn't told you why. She'll tell you when it matters. And when she does, you'll understand everything. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story. I'll see you in the next one.